everybody, George Moorhead, Bentley Properties. Today we're going to talk about foreclosures. Now this is going to be a three-step process because there's so much to go through. So today we're going to talk about foreclosures and versus an REO, and we're going to go through some of the stages and what kind of foreclosure. So my name again is George Moorhead with Bentley Properties. I've been practicing real estate for about 27 years. We've closed over 2,000 residential and commercial properties. And what's amazing is I actually got into real estate initially working with banks and buying foreclosures myself. So I have a ton of experience, and to kind of give you some of the do's and the don'ts, really what to expect. So a couple of shout outs first. Number one, Steve Gonzalez, absolute dear friend of mine. I went into the fire service out of high school. He went into the Army, became an Army Ranger and whatnot. We re-engaged. He's part of our team. He's absolutely one of my all-time favorite people. And today he turns 50. So happy 50th birthday, Steve. I sang for you yesterday, so I'm not singing today. I don't think the people on Facebook would like that. In fact, they probably shut me down because, well, I couldn't carry a tune if my life depended on it. But with that, happy birthday. Hope you have an absolutely amazing day today. The weather's going to be incredible, so have fun, my friend. Another shout out, a couple of our friends, they just had a new baby, and I know they're going to be watching this, so I just want to say congratulations. It is amazing how fast they grow up, so I wish you the best of luck on that one because it happens fast. Anyway, so we had a great question, and somebody said, hey, George, loved your market update last week. You went through a lot of things. You clarified, where we're going, that the sky's not falling, and, everything is kind of, as expected. We're in our normal cycle, and we're going to be flatter, going into next year, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just part of our recovery cycle. And then 2021, we're coming back, right? Okay, so they said, but you didn't say, when is the best time to sell? We always hear that, oh, the spring, you got to sell in spring. The spring's the best time. That's when things go crazy. And yes, the spring is a really good time to sell. And we do get a lot of people that they come on market in the spring. In fact, one of our more active market times. However, my humble opinion, and statistics do show and support this, that between October and mid-December, really are some of the best times to, if you're going to market your home, and even for a buyer to purchase. Now, many of you are going, what? How can that be? All right. So if you're someone who would rather have quality versus quantity, then really October through mid-December is the best time because you have fewer buyers, but the buyers who do come out are serious. And so when I look at marketing my personal homes or whatnot, that is my all-time favorite time because, one, it's less, you don't have the inconveniences. You don't get a bunch of looky-loos. And the people that do come through, are very serious. So keep that in mind. And, for new construction, really keep that in mind because end of year is really important for a lot of builders out there. So those are some of the best times to look at homes. All right, today, let's get back to it. So first, and I'll have Marie go ahead and post this link. So because I have dealt with foreclosures for so long, we actually have a pretty cool ebook. I don't put a lot of graphics into this thing. There's not a bunch of pictures to keep the file size small, but it is a complete compendium of everything of how to do and what to do and how to buy foreclosures. I'll have her post that, so if you're interested, or go ahead and email us, or go ahead and put a comment. You can IM us or whatnot on the site here. I'll have May go ahead and create a specific landing page for you guys if you want, and we will actually mail this out to you. If you want a printed copy, we'll mail it out to you. Otherwise, you can click on the link. You can do a quick download. It is a PDF file. I did write this. I've written a few books and whatnot, so if you are looking for some really good information on how to buy foreclosures and the pitfalls to avoid, just let us know. Which, then we get back to that, make sure that you hit your wow button. Let me know that you're listening and that you can hear me. And if you have any questions, again, post them up there. Let me know what you guys have in mind. All right. So with that, the smart way to buy, absolutely fabulous. It talks you and walks you through the entire process. As far as purchasing, we'll have that online for you also. So with that, let's talk about what is a foreclosure and what's an REO. What's the difference? Okay, the foreclosure is a process. Okay, the foreclosure process is a point from when the homeowner defaults and then goes through the legal process, and then when it becomes bank owned, okay, that becomes an REO. So REO and bank owned are the same thing. Foreclosure and bank owned, or foreclosure and REO, those are two different things, right? It's kind of like going on a trip, all right? A foreclosure is the process of flying or driving to where you're going. An REO or bank owned is the end result, if that helps people kind of understand the difference, all right? So let's talk about the different stages of a foreclosure, all right? So the first thing that you've got, I'll hold my board here, is what we call the notice of default, or the NOD, all right? The notice of default is the point in which the bank says, hey, Mr. Borrower, you have not made your payments as we agreed. And I'm giving you a notice to say, hey, if you don't reinstate and make up those back payments, then I'm going to have to start a trustee sale. And that is a 30-day period, all right? You receive the letter, which is posted on your door, and you have 30 days. From there, you get the second step. If you do not reinstate or reaffirm your foreclosure. So the second step, right, is the notice of trustee sale. I like to use the not because you're not going to get out of this. I'm kidding. All right. So notice of trustee sale is a 120-day window, okay? And you need to keep that in mind. It sometimes is as short as 90 days. It just depends. Most of the time, the notice of trustee sale is typically going to be about a 90-day process. There's a lot of things that actually can, spread that out. They can drag it out a little bit longer. One of those things in Washington State, we have the default borrower law, which went into place, which allows certain rights which a borrower can try and reaffirm a loan. They can work on doing a short sale. They can, they may end up filing bankruptcy, which stops the process. There's a lot of things that happen that can postpone or drag this process out, okay? The next stage then is the actual when it becomes an REO, right? Which stands again for real estate owned, and that's what banks have. Now, a lot of people say, hey, George, I want to know what bank is holding this because by golly, I want to buy it. And I chuckle most of the time because I'm like, well, you understand that you really probably can't, because you see there's a few types of loans that by federal statute must be put on the market. If it's an FHA loan, if it's a Fannie Mae, if it's a Freddie Mac loan, if it's a USDA loan, you have to go on market with a real estate broker. It's just a requirement. Banks, and you have to understand, so here's another big misconception. They think, if this is Bank of America, oh, you know what, I'm going to go down to my local Bank of America and I'm going to say, hey, I want to buy this property. Those guys don't know. It's a completely different department, okay? And with most banks, it's a completely different department. And to get in touch with those, what we call, your asset managers, all right, is almost impossible. And they say, well, I want to buy this. I said, well, you can, but realistically, like all of the other investors, you're going to be looking at probably buying anywhere from, I don't know, $500 million to $3 billion worth of REO assets to get that one property, all right? Now, there are your community banks, like your credit unions and whatnot, that are going to be smaller, and they can deal with things on a different basis prior to becoming a technical REO or during the process of the NOD or the notice of trustee sale. Okay, so You might say, okay, George, then how do I know, right? This is unpublished, all right? So you're never going to know about that one. This one, however, is published, all right? And you will find this on some websites that go ahead and scrub information as far as, you know, hey, here's a new notice of default type of thing, or not notice of default, but notice of trustee sale, because it has to be in a public newspaper. They have to publish it because they also let other creditors know, all right? So this is if you're signed up for, you know, some foreclosure sites, you know, and whatnot, they're just scrubbing detail. That's all it is, okay? Down here, it's already done, and sometimes you can see it, sometimes you can't. They will have in the tax records. Now understand, some of the tax records lag by as much as up to 90 days, okay? So you might say, oh, this is a great idea. I'm going to go down there. I'm going to buy this. I'm going to go to the homeowner. I'm going to buy this. And they'll say, well, you know, I was actually foreclosed 2 months ago. You know, property's vacant, right? And then you see all the stuff that's, you know, piled up and whatnot. All right. So we've talked a little bit about this process. Now let's talk about what kinds of foreclosures. You mean, you know, like, are there more than one? And the answer is, yeah, there are. Okay. So there's two different kinds of foreclosures. And this is important. This is where a lot of people make some serious mistakes, along with lien priority, right? Okay, so the first one is called a judicial. Okay, the second one is called a non-judicial. Okay, this is the one that you want to spend most of your time with, and here's why. This one, the bank says, hey, I'm going to be foreclosing your property, but I also want to have access to your other assets, all right? And so we're going to do a judicial sale. The takeaway is, even after the point of sale, these guys have 12 months, let's do that, 1 year to get their property back, okay? Well, you might say, well, why would a bank do that? Well, most of the time they don't. They go here. It depends on assets. It depends on what, you know, the type of loan was. Was it a commercial loan? You know, things like this. That will come into play as to which one of these you want to go to, which one did the bank actually choose. And this one you have to be careful, because if you take the property back and you do a bunch of improvements, they can come back and actually get the property back. You have 1 year. You have 12 months. And you may want to negotiate and try and see if you can get them to walk away permanently, type of thing. But the whole intent is that it allows somebody to come back and reaffirm, repurchase, or, you know, get their home back. All right. Non-judicial, however, once it's done, it's done. That's it. Then it becomes an REO. Right. This is the one that immediately becomes an REO for sale. This becomes an REO / 12 months. Okay. And that's what's going to be a very, very important thing to take a look at. Some folks have gone in and they've actually bought these. They're like, hey, George, I bought this note, or I bought this foreclosure. And I'm like, awesome. And they'll send it to me and say, hey, did you know that that's a judicial foreclosure that they have up to 12 months? And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, you know, you should, that's a good question. I said, the agent you were working with, didn't they tell you that? No, they didn't tell me that. Well, you're probably working with somebody who doesn't understand all of the process of foreclosures, in which then you need to do something different, all right? So be careful about these two, incredibly important. When we talk about an REO, okay, they did have different sites. HUD has their own site, okay? However, remember what I said, that if you are a home buyer, you must actually work through a real estate broker to purchase these. It's a federal requirement. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, you know, there are some other sites that we call auction sites that they will contract with, depending on the asset manager. Now, and I'll get that to a second. So you need to understand that as you're going through, that if you're looking at one of these, that it has to be online, and timelines are important. Because remember, they don't work on Pacific Standard Time where we're at here in Washington State. Sidebar, everything we're talking about is Washington State, not any other state, Washington State, Pacific Northwest, Washington State only, not any other state. Every state's completely different, all right? Okay, so you'll need to go on and, go to the HUD site that actually, and it's not HUD.com, by the way. Some people think that that is the actual site. It is not. It is HUD.gov, G-O-V. And then you have to go into the property site, and then from there, a registered and approved agent can actually help you walk through the making offer type stage. And that's going to be either the second or third episode. We're going to talk about how to negotiate those online. All right. Okay. So the other sites that you might see are an auction site where you can go in, but you need to be mindful that not only do they have a technology fee, but many times they will charge you an additional 5% for this home. All right. So you're going to end up paying on top of that. All right. Now, many times that is a fee that these guys are charging to attract the banks and the asset managers to go in and actually get a property onto their site so they can attract traffic, blah, blah, blah. All right. Be mindful of that. Be very wary of it. All right. The question is that a lot of people ask me is, George, is it really necessary to work with a real estate broker on this? Absolutely, without a doubt. But also work with somebody who has not only purchased foreclosures, so they understand the process, they understand, what goes into it and some of the risks and limitations, okay? Then that person can help you walk through the process. There's a number of them out there, including myself, that you can get good information. Here's an example. We had a buyer that went out. They ended up buying a house in Bellevue. They were jacked about it. They're like, look, man, I bought this 20% under market. I'm like, hey, that's fabulous. I said, did you go and take a look at it first? They're like, oh, no, but look at it. It's a great property. I said, wait a second. You didn't try and make any effort to get into that house first? And they're like, no. So I said, so you bought it sight unseen? Yes. For only a 20% equity position? Well, yeah. Oh. Well, what did you find out? That the plumbing had been leaking, and on the main floor there was over $42,000 in just floor repair because all of the floor joists had been rotted out over the last 10 years because they didn't, the homeowners didn't have money to fix the plumbing or didn't want to fix the plumbing. But anyway, it ended up rotting everything out so that when you walked into the kitchen, literally you could bounce the floor. And of course, I got out of the house because I'm like, dude, you need to fix this. And so, and they had a basement, which allowed it to be easier, but that's just hours of work, right? Not including paint, carpet, vinyl, ended up replacing a roof. He ended up, at the end of the day, he owed more on the home than it was worth, and he hadn't even sold it yet, right? So you got to keep that in mind. You have to do your homework. Don't buy things sight unseen, ever. Do what you can to get in and see the house. Or you have to make sure that you have enough margin there to cover these things, because you just can't guess. That's too big of a risk. I've seen too many people get bit. The three top things that hurt investors, write this down. Top three things that hurt investors, right? They pay too much for it, okay? The second, they over-improve, all right? Third one, they set the wrong sales price. Okay, because they're trying to get too much. They're trying to squeeze too much out of it. And the market, especially today, is incredibly smart. So these things absolutely kill people, especially this one right here, over-improving. They absolutely destroy themselves because they try and make it to what they want. And you can't do that. Why? Well, what's the first thing that homeowners do when they come in? They make changes. They paint walls. They do different things to a house. So leave it as a clean palette. Don't over-improve a property, because it is just a loser, all right? If you want more tips and ideas on how to do that, one, it's in my book. Two, call me. There's no strings attached. Just call me. I'll let you know. I'll tell you, here are things that make money. Here are things that don't make money. Here are where you want to improve. Here's where you don't. Any agent worth their salt that deals with foreclosures is going to give you this feedback, right? And make sure that you understand, you need to hold properties for a minimum of 90 days. The 91st day you can sell a property per most lending guidelines, especially with HUD, right? And depending on where you're buying homes, that could be very important. So you need to budget that hold time, all right? Okay, moving on. Liens. This is where a lot of people tend to also get in trouble, right? Let me grab my, hang on. Let me grab my eraser here. So liens are one that are probably the next big doozy that people do not pay attention to, and this is where they also get in trouble, all right? Liens that do not go away, all right? A lot of things get foreclosed out, okay, like junior mortgages and things like that. Some judgments, most judgments do. These do not. Number one, property taxes. Drew a blank there for a second. So taxes, right? So you have your property taxes. And by state law, these always hold the highest lien priority, will never be removed, okay? Some people say, hey, George, should I go buy a tax foreclosure? Be careful with that. There's a reason somebody let them go back. Most of the time, they're undevelopable land. A lot of times, you know, you just can't do anything with it. If you're a developer, you may buy a tax foreclosure on an adjacent property to gain additional square footage, you know, to increase your density. I've seen that. I've done that. But for the most part, there's no upside to tax foreclosure, so be very careful with those. The second one that you want to be mindful of is you want to be careful of your mechanics and materials liens, right? So I'm going to shorten those. All right. You might say, George, what in the heck is that? Okay. Mechanics lien is a labor lien. And as long as the timelines are met for when a contractor has filed their claim, that cannot be foreclosed out because they did their job. They did what they were supposed to do. Same thing with the materialsman lien, all right? These are where we have supplied product for this person to, you know, build a house or update a house or whatnot. If you have ever done, if you've ever repoured your driveway, if you have ever had your house recited, many times you get this notice and you look at it and you go, oh my gosh, that's a notice of lien. No, it's not. It's just, you know, it's them letting you know that, hey, if it doesn't get paid, that they're going to file a lien. You pay it and nothing ever happens. It's a standard process. Some of our clients that, you know, like Rick with Prism Painting and Sheetrock, it is a standard practice. And Rick sends them out, but we forewarn our clients, hey, understand you're doing a pretty massive job. Understand you're just going to get this standard notice. It's no big deal. And don't panic when you see it, okay? It's just part of the process. And they're like, oh, okay. And they get it. They're like, is this letter you were talking about? I'm like, yeah, that's the letter I'm talking about. Okay. I don't have to do anything with it? No, you don't have to do anything with it. So just let it ride, all right? Just pay the bill, and you're perfectly fine, okay? So those are probably two of the ones that most people are familiar with. Here's a good one for you. Number 3, IRS. I'll put that in really big. Okay. You know the cool part about IRS liens? They don't publish them. You don't even know they're there. And you know what's even better? They can take the property, I believe it's up to 180 days afterwards, up to 6 months. And so you need to make sure that you're doing the homework and see, you know, hey, does the IRS have a claim against this? Many times the trustee will be made aware of it through the public notice process. The IRS may let the trustee know that there's an IRS lien, or, you know, something has come about. It just depends, okay? Sometimes the IRS will file a judgment, but they don't necessarily have to, but they can come back and acquire the property later. So you need to make sure that you're doing that homework and that you're looking at that. So you can already see that there's a number of pitfalls that you have to be mindful of, okay? This is why I'm saying it takes a number of different episodes to go through this, because we haven't even talked about negotiating. We haven't even talked about financing. We haven't even talked about going and making sure what kind of inspections you should be doing on a piece of property before you buy it, which, guess what? We'll start that again next week. So with that, if you have any questions in the meantime, give me a call. If you want the ebook, it will be published up there for you. Let me know what you need. Again, there's no strings attached. And in the meantime, hang in for next week. We'll be going through financing and more of the process of how do we vet a really good foreclosure, which ones are the best, which ones are not. Next week, I'll see you here again, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks.